His name was Seo Yui. He got trapped inside the dungeon to save his team. Everyone ran away while he sacrificed himself against the boss. But then his system changed, and a hidden class could be activated. Seo Yui was only a D rank who led the rescue team, but now he could control every dungeon around the world, as if he were the very architect of dungeons. Surprising news is spreading through the city. The hunters who challenged a 6-star gate had failed once again. With a competition coming up next year, the reactions weren't good, and concern began to grow. The competition with Japan isn't as fierce anymore. Besides, the Japanese managed to make a lot more money. Their hope is that the rookies from the next generation will have new talents. That's what one of those men asked Seo, the leader of the search and rescue squad. But our boy said that's a concern for the hunters. Their priority is to focus on the rescue call. That's just how it is. The hunters get the spotlight, and the rescue team gets the problems. Normal workers without any luxuries. That's where they truly belong. The hunters' agency is mostly made up of mid-level awakened beings, divided among athletes, supervision, and the rescue department. When something unexpected happens, our boy is the one sent in for the fun. His main role is that of a tracker. Right now, his team is about to enter the portal. This time, the task is to rescue the members of the Epic Guild, and as always, they must stay sharp. Before the mission began, a man with long hair came to talk to them. He's an executive from the Overcross Guild. His name is Beck. Gutsy of him to speak to them so casually. Beck forces small guilds into dangerous places and profits from it, whether they make it out alive or not. A greedy, selfish old man, responsible for many emergency calls. Our boys' team ignored Beck completely, as they had a more urgent matter at hand. However, the old man wanted to offer help, asking if they really didn't need it. But this whole situation is his fault, and he still wants to use it to improve his guild's reputation. Because of that, he was rejected, and quite emphatically. The old man watches furiously as the team walks away. Inside what looks like a forest, the situation is critical. There are wounded people, and they need to be rescued. A girl is trying to heal someone while surrounded by monsters. Completely defenseless, she can only watch as the claws of one of the creatures get closer. But at the last second, she was saved, and the monster's head was sent flying. The creature's body drops lifelessly as the girl tries to understand what happened, until our protagonist extended a hand to her, announcing the rescue team's arrival. After helping her up, someone called out to Seo with great concern. The path ahead was blocked by monsters. They need to find another route. This makes Seo's low-budget sharing and get to work once again. His ability, called Silent Wave, begins to analyze every inch of the place, until an alternate route is finally found. As soon as it was done, he informed his superior. The rescued girl didn't even understand, but she had already been thrown over the shoulder of one of the men. To make matters worse, they're being followed by dangerous creatures. Fearfully, she asked if this was the right route, even though she was in no position to complain. Then, she heard that the team's tracker, despite being a D-rank hunter, is very good. Simply the best in his field. There's nothing to worry about. All that's left is to clear a path and finish off the creatures that appear. And that makes everyone a bit more apprehensive, because the monsters are growing in number. A guy who uses lightning had to use his ability to buy more time, and even the rescued hunter is having to contribute by healing her saviors. That path is definitely the right one. But the monsters know exactly where they're going, which makes everything harder. A necromancer might be involved in this situation. Seo activates his sixth sense. He feels like he's being watched, a sinister feeling, until a magic circle appeared on the ground beneath them. The first reaction is confusion, but they know it's magic. One of the rescuers told everyone to get away from the circle immediately. In the shadows, the necromancer begins to make his move. The sinister, magical glow is getting more and more intense. Seo's companion told our boy to keep running and not look back, until that same companion felt a strong impact on his back. He had been kicked away by Seo himself, who ended up staying behind, inside the circle. Because of the magic, his movements were restricted, and he isn't that fast. Outside, his companions are worried, thinking of a way to rescue him, but Seo told them not to get any closer. No matter what. There are too many monsters there. It could be very dangerous. Knowing the rescue mission had to be completed, our boy's leader left him behind against his will. Seo told them not to lose hope, that he'd find a way to escape. The only problem is that besides being immobilized, he's surrounded by monsters. Alone, our boy spoke to the enemy in the shadows, who had been toying with them from the start. This is the dungeon boss. His name is Karakli. The monster said this was his plan, but our boy is too good at escaping, and it's surprised he knows the layout of the place. Seo said he could give him the answer, as long as he's left alive. This seemed to interest the creature, who agreed to free Seo, but only after turning him into one of the undead. A curse is spreading through Seo's body, draining his life and corrupting his flesh. As he's overcome by this power, he began to wonder if his bluff was for nothing. He could have accepted the help, and who knows, maybe he would have gotten out of there alive. But he's not the type to prioritize money over lives. In fact, this world is full of people like that. And one day in his past, he was saved by a true hero who apologized to the boy for not being able to save everyone. It was then that little Seo was brainwashed by altruism and decided he wanted to be like that hero. A rescuer too. A hunter who protects the weak. That's why he won't die here. Silent Wave was activated again. Along with his sixth sense, Seo began to analyze all the escape routes from that place again, until his eyes landed on something too peculiar to ignore. A small, insignificant monument, but one that now began to glow brightly. On it were mysterious words, and Seo gained access to a secret class, a completely unexpected find. The creature doesn't know what's happening and wants to end our boy's life immediately, surrounding Seo again with its minions of rot. Now, our boy has received the secret class of Labyrinth Architect, but he needs to accept it first, and he must do it fast, because his head is about to explode. Seo has nothing left to lose. He screams with all his might that he accepts the secret class, immediately starting the class change mission, which saved him from being annihilated. The tutorial is starting now. Losing sight of his target, the dungeon boss became enraged, because right before its eyes, Seo had vanished, and it has no idea where he went. In another dimension, Seo checks his status window, confirming he had lost his previous class. And the place he's in now is the tutorial zone. To get his new class, he has 24 hours to defeat 20 enemies. This must be done using the map function, something completely new to him. Using the ability, he saw a 3D model of his location, and it seems easy to use. Our boy is represented by a green dot, and the red ones are his enemies. Now he knows how it works. It's time to start his hunt. For a tracker like him, this task is easier than it looks. It's time for a class change. The corridors are filled with darkness and fog, but that doesn't stop our protagonist from finding his targets. Leveling up, he has only half an hour and 4 enemies left to beat the challenge. He needs to be faster. In the beginning, he managed to grab a weapon from one of the creatures. After that, he continued to defeat his enemies one after another. Seo was optimistic and didn't think time would be so tight until he saw a hideous thing that started chasing him. But unlike the other enemies, this monster moved on its own. Seo knows it will take time to defeat it, and he might not even be able to do it alone, so he needs to defeat the others first and buy a little more time. One of the monsters managed to surprise our boy, coming right at him, which is helpful since Seo needs to save time. Except the situation is a bit more complicated. Other creatures decided to join in as well. All 4 remaining enemies are there. In his haste, Seo didn't check the map and failed to notice the situation that was building up. He needs to calm down and form a plan immediately, as he knows he can only face 2 enemies at once. The logistical problem is that he's surrounded. No matter what he tries, he's trapped like an animal. Seo thought he could win this, but maybe this is the limit for a D-rank hunter. Although this whole situation has been bizarre from the start, he wished he had more tools. And even though he's unhappy, he's not willing to die in a place like this. Using all his skills, Seo is ready to fight like never before. Using his 6th sense along with the map, he unlocked a new skill. It's called Spin Block, an interactive ability. In trying to understand it better, he moved his hand on the map towards a differently colored wall. The creatures are approaching fast, and they're filled with hate, and to their surprise, a wall moved, isolating our protagonist with 1 enemy. Just like that, he regained the advantage in combat. Once again, he uses Spin Block, changing the layout of the labyrinth, this time appearing behind his enemies, executing deadly and devastating attacks. And when the creature tries to retaliate, the labyrinth changes once more. With this advantage, Seo can focus on victory. There's only 1 monster left to defeat, and he managed to plunge his dagger into the creature's neck. Even in pain, the monster managed to grab Seo's face, but that won't be enough. Seo refuses to be defeated here. Using all his strength, he managed to sever the monster's head. Finally, the tutorial was complete. He also gained the King of the Labyrinth ability. The monsters he defeats now belong to him, inside his labyrinth. Outside the dungeon, our boy's team is agitated. The leader wants to go back for him, but the portal vanished as soon as they left. And while they're arguing, Seo appeared, asking why everyone is so worried. At first, his companions were completely speechless, and Seo suggested they go out to eat and celebrate the end of the mission. Seo got a weird ability, a portal that can trap targets in a labyrinth. But the enemies who managed to overcome this challenge emerge even stronger. This portal is invisible to others, which makes it very useful. Seo wants to get stronger, and to do that, he also needs to strengthen his labyrinth with powerful creatures. For that to happen, he needs to defeat real enemies in real dungeons. In other words, the way to get stronger is by getting stronger. His daydream was interrupted by the arrival of a woman. She is Yeon, and she offered our boy an apple. She's coming from work, and her mother told her to bring these fruits to Seo. It's a huge amount, but her family always has a lot of fruit, so it's fine. They've been neighbors for a long time. Now that they're walking, Seo asked how she's doing in school. A bit uncomfortable, Yeon said it's always the same. But Seo couldn't even ask about it because he heard a woman's desperate screams. She wants to go back into that dangerous place, but the police won't allow it. Her son is trapped inside that hotel. Something happened there, and it wasn't a fire. Seo knows exactly what it is. A dungeon break. It's what happens when a portal stays active for too long and monsters start pouring out of it. Seo knows what he has to do, so he handed the apples back to Yeon. It's time to rescue those who need help. Our boy crosses the protective tape, much to the displeasure of one of the police officers. But everything changes when he shows his badge, proving he's from the rescue division. The problem is that he's alone. But our guy is sure that help will arrive soon, so he'll go in first. However, the officer doesn't want to let that happen. A group of red goblins is in the hotel now, and they're extremely dangerous. But that's exactly why Seo wants to hurry, to save lives. Besides, he heard that the woman's son is still inside. The hunters, who should be here soon, haven't arrived yet, so someone has to do something. Besides, it's not like our boy is truly alone. The portal in this area was supposed to have been cleared by a guild called Hanul, which is responsible for this location. But unprofitable gates are ignored, and tragedies like this happen, consuming innocent lives. With his sixth sense, our boy is ready to run some field tests. His enemies have surrounded him, and they're ready to attack immediately. This is what he was waiting for. Goblins don't waste time. As they approach, the dimensional sphere was created. It has its own gravity, and because of that, it started pulling in the creatures. Without understanding a thing, the monsters were completely sucked in. Seo watches through the portal as the creatures enter his labyrinth. He is the lord of that dimension, and it's time for the real fun to begin. Inside the labyrinth, the Red Goblin, a one-star creature, is having a hard time. They obey their leaders and aren't much different from other goblins, and because of this, they are capable of forming attack strategies. But the master of the labyrinth won't let that happen. Using his domain over this space, he changed the position of the walls once again, separating the monsters from his own creatures. This made Seo realize that the goblins are already adapting to the structure of the place. The labyrinth's defenses are holding up well, but our protagonist needs to be a bit more cautious now. Knowing this, it's time to make his enemies even more uncomfortable inside the labyrinth. On one of the hotel floors, a child is doing their best to stay hidden. Seo finally found them and said that everything is okay. Help has just arrived. Now in the hallways, the child can't believe this scrawny guy took care of all the monsters. The strategy of taking them into the labyrinth was the right one, because goblins use their sense of smell to hunt humans. If he hadn't been quick, the little kid would have already been turned into fertilizer. But the situation still isn't good. Half of the creatures protecting the labyrinth have already been wiped out. Seo took the child to the elevator so they could escape safely. He can't go with them, as he still needs to defeat the last dangers in this place. Observing the labyrinth, Seo identified the source of his problems. It's the Red Goblin King, and he's causing a bloodbath in there. Seo can send in the labyrinth's boss to fight now, but if it gets defeated, that will be a problem. It's time for Seo to see the situation with his own eyes. He entered his own labyrinth and was shocked. The place is a mess, full of bodies and destruction, but it's time to stop this and save his creatures. By moving one of the walls, he brought the Goblin King to his location, ready to eradicate his troublesome enemy. As soon as it laid eyes on the human, the Goblin King began its attacks, but it's not fast enough to hit Seo. Even though he's tired, our boy noticed his whole body feels very light. He's already at level 24, and that has clearly changed a lot about his abilities. Faced with his new potential, Seo is confident he can handle this all by himself. A crushing attack ended up destroying the labyrinth floor, and in the next second, Seo hit his enemy. Even wounded, the creature has the strength to keep attacking. Landing a bare-handed blow, it sent Seo flying. The force was considerable, but it didn't affect our boy's physical integrity. Despite this, the Goblin King won't be able to attack with the same force. Its injured arms can't hold that sword. Seo, knowing his advantage, began to taunt the enemy. He said he invested too much time in there, and yet the creature had already become useless. These comments hit the Goblin King's ego, and now it's truly enraged. Full of fury, it charges forward, promising to finish the human before its eyes. All that's left for Seo is to run one more of his tests to better understand his own abilities. The labyrinth's defense mechanisms are being activated. As the Goblin King approaches, it has no idea of the danger looming over it. Spikes descended from the labyrinth's ceiling, completely destroying the dangerous creature. Indeed, the mechanism is efficient, and it only cost 20 gold coins. Seeing it work firsthand, Seo had to agree it's a good investment. Now, those monsters have been added to his inventory, and our boy can leave the hotel relieved, until someone called out to him with great concern and anger. It's our boy's boss who's already outside, and he wants to know what the reckless CEO was doing. He can't even believe our boy handled the situation without getting hurt. SEO said he hit his head and doesn't remember anything. This makes the boy's boss even more worried, as it could have had a dangerous outcome. Their argument was interrupted by the arrival of a young man who wants to know if they are from the rescue division. This nosy guy is from the Hanul Guild, and he'd like to speak with them. With hostility in their eyes, they agreed to talk to this irresponsible guy. First, the jerk thanked them for what they had done at the hotel, but he quickly got straight to the point. He asked them not to give interviews to reporters about what happened. The guild doesn't want the news getting out, as it would worry the locals. They also donate to the Hunter Agency, so it's only fair to return the favor. That's how they buy people's silence, with money. To make matters worse, the S-rank awakened are in the guilds, not the agency. That's why people trust them more, believing the guilds are the ones doing the protecting. The way the guilds exploit this trust fills our protagonist with rage. Placing a hand on the jerk's shoulder, he said he got the message, as he is also a hunter. In fact, he doesn't want too much attention on the case because of his recent class change. But life isn't that simple. Our boy is going to take advantage of this situation. Having cleaned up that mess, it would be very interesting to be well paid for his silence. He stated that a sponsorship of 10 billion won would be appropriate for what's to come, a staggering amount which left the jerk speechless. After this incident, life calmed down again. In fact, our protagonist got 2 days off for what he had done, not to mention the extra money he secured for the agency. The only problem is that his coworkers are a bit suspicious. If they find out he went through a second awakening, it'll be very complicated, so it's better to keep it a secret for now. For now, our boy's only concern is maintaining the labyrinth and nothing else. Repairing the damage and adding more monsters costs gold coins. It's the same currency hunters use, and it's very expensive. Each coin costs 1 million, but CEO has 80 coins stored away. That should be enough for a few weeks. While thinking about his labyrinth, our boy received an unexpected call. He answered right away, saying he was on his day off, but the person on the other end said she knows he's at the park doing nothing. It's a woman, and she's counting on his free time for him to use his skills. Lee is from the surveillance department, and she needs our boy to find someone, but when she made the request, she got no response. Our boy had hung up. CEO's priority is to save money. He isn't even going to place all the creatures in the labyrinth yet. The poor guy can't even think right now because his phone won't stop ringing. He told Lee to find someone else for the job. She replied that he'll want to do it when he finds out who needs to be found. It's Kang. And in fact, our boy would like to see that person again. Someone with his notoriety shouldn't be too hard to find. In a park square, some elderly men are playing a board game. Our boy is there, watching the fierce competition between the octogenarians. But what he's really observing is the energy of one of those old men. The red aura that only powerful awakened beings possess. This is no joke. The only question is, if this old man is really the person he's looking for. He looks very different from what he imagined. Seeing our young man there, the old man asked if he'd like to play too. SEO said he plays a little. This prompted another old man to ask him for tips on how to beat the unbeatable elder. So, our boy started to help, but in the middle of it, his sixth sense was activated. Something flew past his head at high speed. One of the game pieces had been thrown with great force. The old man said he can tolerate someone with ulterior motives approaching him. Now, CEO is sure this is the right person, one of the 5 S-rank hunters in all of Korea, the hunter who can turn anything in his hands into a deadly weapon. Returning to his speech, Kang, the old man, said he can't tolerate interruptions to his game. Lee appeared just then. She had been looking for this master. The old man quickly realized they were from the surveillance team. This prompted our boy to reveal he's from the rescue team. Kang called him arrogant, and our boy said his only flaw is having too many qualities. The old man said our boy would be much better if he didn't talk so much nonsense. Lee said she's been looking for him everywhere, and it's been a while since Kang last saw her. The trainees are all gathered. It's time to go, so Kang decided to go with her. However, Lee is curious. She wants to know how CEO found the old man when the surveillance department couldn't. Our boy said he did it because he could, and now he's going to enjoy the little time off he has. But the old man asked where this arrogant child thinks he's going. He's a hunter too, so it's time to go with them. Kang wants to test this loudmouth personally. All awakened beings have their own maximum capacity. No matter how much a C rank tries, they will still be a C rank. But the system can't define everything. Martial arts can't be easily measured. So, it's possible to get stronger according to one's proficiency with their own equipment. That's why those hunters were gathered in that place with the old man, Kang. Unfortunately, CEO is there, but he really wished he was improving his labyrinth. Next to him is a trainee who has been training under Kang for 4 months. This extra is one of the few B-rank hunters in the surveillance department. Kang said he has potential, which is why he's here. Holding a sword, He asked his student what is necessary to master it. The young man said it requires raw power and a deep understanding of techniques. Kang fell silent and asked the same question to the arrogant young man next to his student, our protagonist. SEO said it's the will to swing that weapon. The trainees who heard this answer thought it was quite foolish. Kang said that was a half-baked answer and wanted to know if Seo was sure about it. But our boy said yes, and as expected, an S rank is indeed very sharp. Kang once again said our boy has an arrogant attitude, but he gave the right answer. This ended up leaving the extra quite upset, so he questioned what happened, since the rookie doesn't even attend the classes. SEO found it very strange that the extra got so worked up. It was just a simple question. Going completely off topic, Kang realized he needed some fun, so he's going to give the two of them a little test. They must prove the conviction of their answers through it. The question is whether they will accept. The extra accepted, and Seo said he wasn't very interested. Kang asked if our boy was sure about what he was doing, because passing one of his tests means becoming his disciple. This ended up making Seo much more interested. This is an opportunity to reach incredible heights. Kang quickly noticed our boy became much more interested at the mention of this reward. Seo thought deeply for a brief moment, coming to the conclusion that he could never miss an opportunity like this. The test they will perform will be very simple. They need to use the skill the old man taught them to destroy the ether stone in front of them. Whoever emerges victorious from this challenge will become the old man's new disciple. Our protagonist knows exactly what an ether stone is. They possess a great deal of magical power, something that can only be found inside temples, and only powerful awakened beings can break them. But our boy has no idea what skill the old man is talking about. Amidst the animosity from all the trainees, Lee seems very confident in our protagonist, who is determined not to lose this opportunity. Kang said it was time to pass on his skill. If they feel absolutely nothing, they should keep in mind that failure is natural. It was time for them to begin the process. The old man began to manifest his entire malevolent aura. This energy is so dense and heavy that our protagonist is having trouble breathing, but he needs to resist it all, even though he feels like he might lose consciousness at any moment. In the midst of all that desperation, he finally managed to see something, an illuminated spear coated in magical energy. Our boy acquired the skill of serenity and completely mastered the Dragon King's spear. The old man noticed a big change in the young men's expressions, a sign that they have an aptitude for this technique, and they should be proud of what happened, because normally people can't feel anything, and those who do sometimes faint, like the ones in the audience. Now that everything has been prepared, it's time for those young men to prove if they are worthy of becoming disciples. The extra is the first to position himself in front of the stone, ready to strike it. Full of confidence, he believes he will be able to completely destroy that boulder. A side character scoffs at Seo, who remains completely calm. He knows the old man has been suspicious from the very beginning. Not knowing how our boy got there, he believes Seo gained an advantage through a bribe. So, he decides to show his worth through strength. With a devastating blow, the extra ripped a chunk out of the stone. Everyone was deeply impressed. They couldn't understand why a hunter with so much potential would choose to work for the agency. The old man was impressed by this. After his display, the extra made a point of bumping into our protagonist, telling him he wouldn't succeed. Our boy remarked that the guy's confidence was as fragile as an eggshell. Kang told them to praise each other later. It was time for our protagonist to take the test too. The truth is, in terms of raw power, the other hunter is far stronger. But what they're doing now doesn't rely solely on strength. It's a test to prove our boy's conviction. In fact, the old man said our boy's answer was correct, the will to hold his weapon. And indeed, our protagonist believes in this truth. Recalling his own life, he began to remember the reasons why he keeps fighting. His greatest goal is to become like that hunter, so that others can feel the same hope he does. This is the real reason he became a hunter for the agency. His goals will only be achieved when he becomes immensely stronger than he is now. Because of this, our boy managed to unleash an absolutely absurd attack, leaving everyone present speechless. Even the old man had to pay close attention. Meanwhile, the prideful extra realized the weight of the truth. After landing the attack, our boy spoke directly to the ignorant fool, because he had just taken his place as the disciple. Kang made it clear that weapons and skills are just tools. To use them, one must know oneself to unleash their true power. From now on, our protagonist became the old man's disciple, the first great achievement of our boy's life. As he showed his power to everyone, he was met with a standing ovation from the extras. Later in the city, our protagonist's neighbor is being beaten up. The delinquents from her school are despicable people. It seems she ended up in this situation for trying to help a friend. She never should have slapped that thug. Doing the right thing sometimes has harsh consequences. So, it's time for her to learn how life works. A friend of hers jumped from the school roof and is now in the hospital. Hearing this, Yan became genuinely enraged. But this only makes the thugs even happier, taking the opportunity to constantly assault her. The punishment session was interrupted by the arrival of that young master's subordinate. He's a B-rank hunter. With his arrival, the wealthy young man decided to leave, but told the girl not to run away. The hunter wants to know where they're going now. The thug said there's only one reason. They're going somewhere with no people, so he can have his fun without any limits. Back with our protagonist, people are praising his achievement of becoming the old man's disciple. Lee wants to know if the spear he received as a gift will be enough. Our boy says it will, because there's nothing better than that golden spear, the spear of evolution, which can adapt to its user's will. That day was full of complicated events, and it was past time for them to finish work. Our boy made it very clear that Lee did nothing. She just watched everything. At the agency, a desperate person is looking for our boy, but the guard is blocking their access. He suggested making a call, but the problem is, our boy isn't answering. Luckily, he was already on his way out and managed to find this person, whom he called Boss. Wanting to know if everything was okay, he started to worry. The man said that Yan was taken by some thugs. That was enough to make our protagonist burn with rage. That group of thugs entered the dungeon. It's a bit dangerous, which is why the B-rank hunter is with them. The thug believes they're protected from the monsters. He asks if Yan is scared yet, since he heard the monsters there aren't that strong. Desperate, Yan started to run, trying to escape the thug's reach. Watching the girl, the delinquent leader ordered the hunter to catch her. Yan knows staying there is too dangerous. She needs to find a way to escape. But her attempt was completely futile. She's not fast enough to escape that hunter. Even inside the dungeon, she screamed desperately for help, but there was no one there who could. It was at that moment the hunter sensed something approaching. He told everyone to get back, as he couldn't yet tell what it was. The attack was too fast. The hunter managed to defend himself, but one of the delinquents was injured. This left their leader terrified, because what now lay on the ground was a lifeless body. Knowing the danger, the hunter told his master to flee, because things had just gotten serious. The monster that appeared was a hell wasp, a truly dangerous creature. Back with our protagonist, he has already entered this cursed forest. After defeating several of these wasps, he found out where Yan was taken. One of his colleagues at the agency was responsible for getting this information, but he asked our boy to be cautious. SEO said that danger is part of the job. Inside that place, he concluded it would be terrible to stay there for long. This is a region where a dungeon break occurred. It had to be completely isolated, as living there is impossible. The monsters aren't that powerful, but they've still made the region completely uninhabitable. To make matters worse, they are numerous. At least they're weaker than goblins. The truth is, for the unawakened, there's no way to survive here. That's why the protagonist needs to hurry. But every time he tries to advance through the forest, he gets attacked. There are swarms of those wasps everywhere. They've been hindering his progress since the entrance. That's why our boy is luring these monsters into his labyrinth. Knowing the gate was dangerous, the creatures became a bit hesitant, but that's not a problem for our protagonist. He's just waiting for his enemies to walk into the trap. And for that to happen, Seo needs to run a little further, taking the opportunity to use his spear lethally. But the longer he stays in this position, the more dangerous things become. His labyrinth is losing too many monsters. If he keeps putting enemies in there, he'll be left with no defense. Even though he's strong, the enemy's numerical superiority is a huge problem. That's why he's going to use his last resort now. Near a water source, Seo opened his portal once again, firing a kind of energy blast toward the enemies. He was ready to settle this battle, even if just for a moment. The portal leading to the labyrinth began to absorb a large amount of water. Several goblins have already been defeated. In the labyrinth's corridors, the imprisoned monsters started to worry. A large amount of water appeared out of nowhere, enough to end the lives of many of them. SEO realized that dealing with all this water later would be a lot of work, but he had no other choice. At least things got a little quieter. Through the forest, the group of thugs is trying to escape, completely terrified. Even the B-rank hunter isn't enough. There are too many enemies now. The wealthy young man won't stop getting angry, calling the hunter completely useless. As they try to flee, the extras are being exterminated one by one. Soon, only the hunter, the problem child, and Yan remain. The monsters are eager to consume human flesh. The hunter is already overwhelmed, not just by the battle, but by the young master's orders. While he fights, the young people are left completely unprotected. Being a true coward, the jerk used Yan's body as a shield. But before something terrible could happen, the monster was annihilated. They couldn't understand what had just happened. The jerk demands to know who this person is. Obviously, it's our protagonist. He asks if they were the ones who brought Yan here against her will. Realizing it's our protagonist, Yan is immediately relieved. The same goes for our boy, who sees she's safe, even though she's crying. Witnessing this reunion, The jerk wastes no time. He demands to be taken out of the forest, promising to pay for it. Jan tells our boy to ignore the jerk and leave without him. But in response to this, our protagonist simply apologizes. Without another word, he strikes the girl on the neck. He states that he'll finish this quickly. The jerk becomes very worried, having no idea what he means. SEO said he was going to do something his friend was better off not witnessing. Filled with fear, the jerk asked if our protagonist knew who he was. SEO already knew this delinquent was the son of an influential minister of justice, but he was also a despicable person, involved in crime from a very young age. He only gets away with it because he has a lot of money. Without questioning the accusations, the jerk felt proud of this, which earned him a kick to the shin. Pain took over his facial expression. Fallen on the ground, the jerk realized this was just the beginning. He wouldn't get out of this situation with just money, because money can't buy our boy's integrity. Before he could teach the guy a lesson, that hired hunter decided to interfere. CEO realized his fun was about to get even more intense. A little more confident, the delinquent believed he would get away with it, because a mere agency hunter couldn't possibly defeat a B-rank hunter. However, our protagonist was holding his own against all the attacks. This was all he needed to justify his actions. Our boy's first strike against the hunter was brutal. This started to worry the B-rank hunter. He shouldn't be getting pushed back like this. He began to wonder if CEO was really just an agency hunter. The fight was becoming concerning. Since he was facing a spear, he needed to close the distance and attack our protagonist. Even doing so, he got no results. SEO remained extremely dangerous, smashing the poor guy's nose with a single punch. It was strong enough to send him flying. This left the delinquent kid terrified because that was a B-rank hunter. As soon as he learned this, our protagonist was impressed. By defeating several monsters in that place, he had gotten a little stronger. Even in the face of this power, the rich boy remained arrogant. Arming himself with a rock, he was ready to take revenge with his own hands, but all he got was a little more suffering, getting hit by our boy's spear. This was the first time he'd ever been beaten like this. The time had come for this thug to pay for everything he had done. Desperate and toothless, the boy tried to make promises, willing to hand over a lot of money. CEO understood the situation. Someone as despicable as this citizen didn't deserve to exist, and even if he did, our protagonist didn't want to make him suffer too much either. He was going to leave him alone in the forest, in the company of those friendly creatures. Soon enough, a monster decided to approach the boy. Completely surrounded by beasts, the delinquent tried to offer them money, but he ended up becoming the creature's meal. SEO walked away as the creatures had their afternoon snack. Outside, everything was resolved. Jan was rescued without any injuries and returned to her family. Corrupt officials had allowed the young man to enter the forest, and they were already being held accountable. The news of what happened spread quickly. It ended with the scoundrel's father resigning from his government position. Eventually, a new task appeared for our protagonist. In 30 days, he needed to defeat the Wasp Queen to receive 100 gold coins. Leaving the forest, our boy saw something quite peculiar. A large creature. This must be the Wasp Queen. She was protected by a large swarm, so getting to her wouldn't be easy. But since he had gotten stronger, our boy had also become much more confident. By luring her into his labyrinth, his power could grow even greater. The day this task appeared, Seo left work early. His boss even asked if he had finished his paperwork. Our boy just stared at the pile of paper in total silence. Without giving an answer, he simply walked out of the office. The time to complete the system's task was running out, but to win, he needed to prepare himself well. SEO went to meet with his elderly master, who was already waiting to receive him. The training was about to begin. Now dressed in a disciple's uniform, our protagonist asked if he had really taken on this role. The old man told him not to feel so pressured. Even as a direct disciple, there were only 2 others above him. It was time to focus on the initial training. One of the disciples said he was ready, and the old man praised his work. Our protagonist walked past this side character. I could be wrong, but it's the same proud guy who was defeated by our warrior. Inside a hall was the jaw of a creature that the old man had taken down. It was the first monster that almost brought him to death's door. The old man still has scars on his back from that battle. It was time to show what our protagonist needed to do. The old man began to channel all of his power. All this just to open what was once the jaw of a deadly creature. It was still a very difficult feat to perform. As soon as he let go of the gauntlets, the jaw snapped shut again. The disciples who witnessed it were deeply impressed, and our boy was trying to understand how this old man could be so strong. Now it was our protagonist's turn to try. CEO knew he was already as strong as a B-rank hunter, but he wouldn't be able to do what his master did. Even so, it was worth trying with all his might. Observing our boy's effort, the old man realized this was very unexpected. The creature's jaw remained completely shut. This training was focused on increasing physical strength, so our boy had to keep trying. But he needed to know something immediately. He would only move on in his training once he could open the creature's jaw. Poor guy. It didn't look like he would succeed anytime soon. Watching his effort, that proud side character became even more certain that this was all a fraud. It had been 2 years since he joined that academy. He had improved his skills more than anyone else, all to become a direct disciple. But by a twist of fate, the one who got the spot was our boy. Some random guy. Every time he thinks about it, the side character sees it as a great injustice. When he arrived at the academy that morning, he was greeted by someone special. It was our protagonist, who was already sweeping the place. The side character noted that our boy arrived early, and even though it was a holiday, our guy didn't let that change his plans. He also said he could be treated less formally, even though he was the direct disciple. Still, the proud one preferred to maintain formality, but he was impressed that our boy had cleaned everything. He asked him not to do it again, as it made the lower disciples uncomfortable. But our boy asked if it was necessary to divide the tasks that way, because if he had time to contribute, he'd rather do it. As a direct disciple, he didn't want to reap the benefits of his position, since everyone was there to improve together. This protagonist-like attitude only made the side character even more irritated. For the next 2 weeks, Seo continued trying to open the creature's jaw, training harder than anyone else. Even with hierarchical advantages, he didn't use them for his own benefit, and he managed to get along with everyone there, even during their downtime. Not to mention he trained like a complete madman, which made the side character even more annoyed. However, this was exactly the kind of person the side character wished he could be. After much training, the teeth began to move apart just a little. Some students who were rooting for our boy were happy about this. As soon as he finished his attempt, someone brought something for our boy, a small water bottle. It was the proud side character, who was becoming captivated by our boy's determination. SEO was relieved. This guy was starting to come to his senses. Before he could drink the water, a very loud noise was heard by everyone. It sounded like an explosion, and it announced the arrival of the Overcross Guild. There was news that they were entering a nearby dungeon, even though it was late at night. They work at any hour since they have so many people. The proud side character had worked for them before. The next morning, several men emerged from the portal. The job they had to do finished ahead of schedule. They even managed to capture a large creature. One of them asked if it was okay to do this. His partner said it wasn't normally allowed, but if they could sell it, they would get at least 12 billion Korean won. That's how they could pay everyone's salaries. Even captured, the creature maintained its bloodlust. A necklace was also captured with it, which seemed to be a piece of junk. While the hunters were joking around, the creature grew more and more enraged. Another gate appeared in the city, and as usual, hunters were on the scene. The rescue team had finished their work. It was time for them to leave. SEO said he was going straight to the academy because he needed to keep training, so he would miss dinner with his team that day. Since the master wouldn't be present, it was important for the direct disciple to be there. Before he could leave, a loud alert sound froze everyone in their tracks. They're calling for emergency assistance from all available teams. A monster being illegally transported has broken free, and it's completely out of control. And this is happening near our protagonist's academy. The place is already completely destroyed, and several hunters have already lost their lives. Disciples of all ages are desperate. Left behind was that proud extra, who, despite being a pain in the ass, is man enough not to run away. It's time for the proud extra's flashback. When he became a hunter, he always thought he was a genius. This belief comforted him many times, and he used his strength to enjoy special privileges. Until one day, he was left behind. He was just a replaceable asset on that team. That's when he understood how cruel the world can be. Even so, he doesn't want to believe that all people are rotten and useless. One day, he was saved by someone from a rescue team. That's why he decided to stay behind. To help people too, because he wants to make this world a better place. It was with this mindset that he endured 2 years at that academy. The truth is, right now he can barely stand, but he needs to buy as much time as possible, even if it's just a few seconds. His body is about to be completely obliterated by the out-of-control creature's strike. But at the last moment, something burst through the roof. It positioned itself above the creature's head. The proud extra realized he was looking at our protagonist. Using his mysterious labyrinth abilities, he is ready to handle this situation. It didn't take long for him to be pulled into this other dimension. The creature is there too, and all our boy can do now is run. This is too big of a challenge for our guy. The creature is so powerful, it can simply break through the labyrinth walls. It's no wonder it's a high-level monster. Fighting it alone is not a good strategy. SEO is ready to make things a little more interesting. He completely blocks the escape from that corridor. He summons all his creatures for a brutal, direct assault. All our protagonist needs to do now is find an opening while his enemy is distracted. The only problem is its overwhelming strength. Every one of its blows destroys several monsters, including the labyrinth itself. With his current defense, our boy won't be able to find an opening, and he doesn't want to use everything he has right now. It's time to put that other guy to work. A large, strong creature finally managed to immobilize the menacing monster. This is the labyrinth's boss. His name is Ezekias, the extra monster. But all Ezekias managed to do was get his face smashed by his enemy. The poor thing doesn't have the strength to keep up this fight, but it gave our boy an opportunity to find a weak spot, and he's ready to drive his spear into a very specific part of the creature's anatomy. A scream of pain and terror filled the entire place. Ezekias is also screaming as the malevolent creature tries to gouge out his eyes, and it did, completely crushing Ezekias's face. Now that the labyrinth boss is defeated, our protagonist can't summon any more monsters here. He needs to defeat the enemy immediately, or things will get very complicated. It's time to use the traps that are still working. Several arrows are being shot from the sky, heading for the creature. The large orc tries to defend itself, but its flesh was pierced by a few arrows, not to mention our protagonist's spear, which keeps finding its way into its flesh. Seo began to feel that victory was approaching. He knocked his enemy to the ground for the first time. This gave the ceiling spikes a chance to activate, completely crushing the creature's body. Placing those traps there was really useful. After achieving victory, our boy was notified of something. The labyrinth's health is at 70%. If it drops below 60, it could collapse. The damage it took this time was heavy, but beating an enemy like that would be impossible without its help. While celebrating, our boy noticed the trap was being destroyed. The monster that should have been dead rose once more. Its entire body is covered in armor, and it roars in fury, ready to bring death to all. Seo realized his enemy is very persistent. It's time to take it outside. This has to be done because the labyrinth is already on the verge of destruction. The proud extra is making his escape, thinking that all the trainees managed to get away. Before fleeing himself, he saw that black sphere once again. It started to grow larger and larger, releasing a lot of energy. He still doesn't understand what it means. Then he finally saw our protagonist again, fighting that dangerous creature. The orc is truly a force of nature. Its blows are capable of ending a normal person's life. The fight is dragging on for so long that our boy is starting to get exhausted too. To make matters worse, his enemy has gotten much more powerful. Even so, Seo is aware that great changes have happened to his body. These 2 weeks of training have brought great results. Although his body is being pushed to its limits, he feels there's still power left to use. The results of his training are being revealed in this battle. Our fighter's spear is glowing. It is adapted to the enemy, becoming a deadly weapon once again. After being struck, the creature started to spit up a lot of blood. Seo is having a lot of fun with this fight, as its course has just changed. Even injured, the monster managed to grab our protagonist's spear, pulling our boy in with its remaining strength. It hurled our boy away, hoping to make him drop his spear. It happened so intensely that our poor protagonist couldn't do anything. Even though he landed a precise attack, he still hasn't been able to weaken the out-of-control creature. Next to our boy is something very interesting. Hopefully it's a weapon, because his spear was just confiscated by the creature. It locked its eyes on our protagonist, charging towards him like a locomotive. In the midst of the chaotic fight, the proud extra managed to intervene, striking the monster's arm with his sword. He's ready to sacrifice himself to buy the protagonist a little more time, and that's all he can do, as he's immediately thrown to the ground like a sack of crap. The force was so great that the proud extra almost coughed up his liver. Seo found a very interesting weapon to use now, the jaw of that creature used for training. He uses the entire artifact to smash his enemy's head. This time, the impact was brutal. The orc was visibly disoriented. It's time to use this opportunity to end the fight once and for all. With all the strength our boy has left, it's time to turn that enemy into paste. For the first time in 2 weeks, our protagonist managed to open the monster's mouth. He's using the tool to attack his brutal enemy, and the jaw capable of biting through anything has just ended this fight. Finally, the out-of-control creature has been silenced forever. Its lifeless body fell to the ground, headless. With this victory, our protagonist obtained a unique item, the demonic dagger. All of this was only possible because of that training item. Seo can now move on to the next lesson, as he managed to open the creature's jaw. Back to the petulant extra's flashback, he's still very disoriented, but he was helped by someone. It was our protagonist. And the same thing happened again. As he regained consciousness, he was woken up by our boy. He finally realized he had been saved by the same person. More than once, but our protagonist has no idea what he's talking about. At least that brutal scene is over. Rescue teams have arrived to help the injured. The next day, at the agency building, the news continued to spread. Many people are there to gather information about what happened. That same despicable old man from the beginning of the story, Beck, has just arrived. The reporters want him to say something about the incident, about the illegal transport of monsters. The old man apologized to all the victims, stating that the creature had high research value. The action seemed reckless, but he said it was a donation. He can't give any more information, but he is willing to cooperate fully with the investigation agency. One of the reporters found our boy, the one responsible for solving this huge problem. It didn't take long for several reporters to flock to him, wanting to hear the D-rank hunters' side of the story. Our boy's boss cut them off, stating that they are very busy. Before he left, someone said the agency was slow to respond to the call. They should monitor all the major guilds to prevent situations like this from happening. That sounded like an accusation. Our boy was upset, but his boss told him to ignore it all. This guy must be just a paid influencer, hired to create news like this. SEO realized that the real enemies were using all sorts of dirty tricks. It was only fair for him to use this opportunity to his advantage as well. He went up to that influencer and asked if his stream was live. It was time to say what was on his mind. SEO said it must be nice to get paid to clean up other people's messes. They are the ones responsible for cleaning up the mess caused by the old man's recklessness. Attacking Beck so publicly left all the reporters quite worried. Our boy was doing this on purpose. Faced with these accusations, the old man remained silent until someone decided to pull our protagonist by the hair. His boss managed to get him out of the situation, apologizing for what happened and saying the boy was just spouting nonsense. Beck recognized our protagonist. He was the same one who had disrespected him before. Furious with our boy, Beck told his subordinate to finish him off, to teach him a lesson. Obviously, the video of that recording went viral, and in the meeting room, that's what they were talking about now, our protagonist's behavior. His boss is very worried about this and hopes he won't be punished. Even if the other side is at fault, the video could have been manipulated. And the truth is, people are talking a lot about it. That's why a punishment is deserved. At least, that's what the head of the surveillance department wants to do. This upset our boy's boss, because the one who should be punished is the Overcross Guild. The argument between them grew more intense, and the head of supervision called the other man crazy, until someone told them both to shut up and get on with it. According to the data, our protagonist's rescue success rate is perfect. They can't afford to lose a talent like him. Even though they depend on the cooperation of the major guilds, they must protect the agency's authority. The head of supervision wants to know if this man has another solution to the problem. What just happened was very interesting, and they can't retaliate yet, so they should at least give a response. The one who said this is the agency's director, the old man with the mustache. Our protagonist was outside a room. He knocked on the door. The person inside allowed him to enter. It was the director's office. The old man with the mustache. He immediately asked our guy to sit down, because there was a very important matter to discuss now. First, he offered some tea. SEO said it was so good the old man could open a coffee shop. He liked the compliment and asked if he had any more questions. For example, if he were to take the ranking test again, what would his classification be? SEO said he wasn't sure about that, but he believed nothing would change. The old man smiled, because our protagonist had accomplished things a D rank wouldn't be able to do. This agency is very busy, and many people are working hard to prevent that incident from becoming a scandal. SEO started to get suspicious. He thought the old man wanted to know his secret just because he was trying to help him. The man with the mustache had held his position for many years thanks to his political skills. Our boy's boss advised him to be very sincere in front of him and not to try to gain any kind of advantage as it could get complicated. But filled with worry, CEO didn't know if he should mention the labyrinth to him. And in fact, the man with the mustache wasn't interested in how our boy had gotten stronger, because there was something much more important. The agency needed his strength, so he wanted to send him to the countryside. Elsewhere, an investigation had just been completed. Beck was very interested in our boy and wanted to know what that representative from the supervision agency knew about him. But since they're from different departments, he didn't have much information. Beck revealed that he was furious with this insect who didn't know his place. In fact, he was one of the people who contributed to our boy being sent to the countryside. Their conversation was interrupted by our protagonist himself, who asked if the two of them were close. It seems that somehow these two will end up seeing a lot of each other. Beck feigned surprise, having heard that our boy was being sent to the countryside. In response, CEO said the official announcement hadn't even happened yet, and he was surprised someone from the outside already knew. He must be very interested in his life, but he shouldn't worry, as it would only be 6 months of work. Smiling discreetly, Bayek said that our boy was being too optimistic. These transfers aren't that simple. He might not be able to return to the capital, but our protagonist remained very confident, because along with this transfer, he had also been promoted to senior associate. Our boy's political enemies were not expecting that. SEO quickly noticed the old man wasn't happy about it, but he had to maintain his composure and offered his congratulations. But he began to suspect the promotion, thinking maybe it wasn't deserved. SEO knows he's a very talented young man, and the agency doesn't want to lose someone like him. The truth is, These two already hate each other and were about to trade blows right there. Thankfully, a bystander intervened, telling the old man to leave now. Beck apologized for what happened, as he had let some of his aggression slip out. With that said, he went on his way as usual. Before leaving, our protagonist offered him some advice. Trying to change his location was a big mistake. No matter where our protagonist is, his job of rescuing people remains unchanged. Beck fell silent after hearing those words, but his fury was so great that he had to destroy a wall with one of his punches. Our protagonist had really managed to piss him off. As for the man with the mustache, he did everything he could not to lose this talented young man. The conversation they had was productive, ensuring it would only be for 6 months. While he's there, our protagonist will have to show good results so he won't be politically attacked. But he soon noticed our boy was distracted. SEO immediately apologized. The truth is, he still had a favor to ask since he was going to another place. He'd like to be sent to a region where he could be useful. It was these words that left the man with the mustache even more captivated, seeing in our protagonist someone with a true calling for what he does. Eventually, our boy's promotion became public, and it was big news. The people on his team were surprised. Only the boss already knew what was going to happen. Despite the good news, they were worried. Working without our boy would be very difficult. Before his transfer, CO got a week off. The boss said to call him for the team dinner. The guy with glasses did as ordered, and our boy said he was a little busy. Right now, he was in the forest, doing his homework. The time had come to defeat the Wasp Queen, a task for which our boy had prepared very well. He only had 72 hours to finish it. Since he was very busy, Seo had to hang up the call. His deadline to complete this task was already drawing near. To reach the Wasp Queen, he would need to defeat many enemies. Armed with his spear, our protagonist was quite confident of victory. Without a second thought, he charged towards the creatures surrounding him, knowing that his only priority was to defeat the queen. Several stingers were heading towards our boy. He managed to block the wave of attacks with a single swing of his spear. Among the wasps, there were now shooter wasps. They could fire their stingers like bullets. The queen avoided producing these monsters because it consumed too much energy. Seo realized that if he wasted too much time there, he would end up completely surrounded. The time had come to use the power of the labyrinth, sending those creatures to his personal dimension. Since there weren't many of them, they would end up caught in the traps. Thanks to the gravity of the labyrinth sphere, the other wasps couldn't fly very well, clearing the path for our protagonist to approach the nest. He was getting closer and closer to the queen, cutting through the swarm of wasps without looking back. The enemy's movement pattern just changed. They were clumping together in groups. Finally, our protagonist could see the queen with his own eyes. She already knew the attack was coming. That's why she was so well prepared, an attitude that left our boy flattered. But he also had time to prepare, with a plan of his own. The monsters in his labyrinth could be produced again. This was a strategy he could use. It was time for our boy to enter the labyrinth once more, disappearing before the wasps. But his true intention is something else, to use the full potential of this dimensional sphere. This allowed our guy to reposition himself with incredible speed. Now he's practically face to face with the Wasp Queen, ready to end her life and complete his mission. SEO realized the creature was reacting to his presence. It was producing various pheromones in an attempt to call the wasps back to the nest. This triggered our guy's sixth sense, allowing him to immediately dodge a sneak attack. It was this creature that the queen was calling for, the drone, the nest's last line of defense. The creature is truly formidable. It's very costly to keep it alive, so the queen must be desperate. But the enemy's presence gave our guy hope. He knows one thing: after defeating this monster, taking down the queen will be a piece of cake. That's why he decided to send it to the labyrinth dimension. With the path clear, our guy is ready to finish off the queen. But what he didn't expect was that his plan had failed. He was being followed. He had to defend himself from an attack by the creature that should have been trapped. The impact was so violent that the ground shattered. Seo is about to lose his head to the blades of this massive drone. The situation just got a lot more complicated. The creature avoided being sucked in by severing one of its own arms, proving its intelligence. On top of that, its physical strength is truly impressive. Completely immobilized, Seo noticed the queen approaching to finish the job. This left our guy a bit annoyed. In fact, he's full of confidence. Using the labyrinth once more, he managed to prevent the worst from happening. Everyone is now inside that dimension. It's not what our guy wanted, but he believes the outcome will be the same. If the creatures wander carelessly, they'll end up caught in a trap. SEO rebuilt it with great care, and thanks to his secret class abilities, fighting these enemies won't be as challenging, because our guy can freely manipulate the labyrinth's walls. The first trap has just been activated. Arrows are being fired at the monsters summoned there, but to our guy's surprise, his enemies are still alive and unharmed. But now the arrows are coming from multiple directions, and this time, The drone's body was completely pierced. Finally, the queen found herself alone. All those traps were set for this single purpose. Without her greatest weapon, the queen is completely defenseless in a battle against the protagonist of this story. Without a second thought, Seo charged forward. He knows the queen's armor is highly resistant, capable of deflecting many attacks, so even his spear might not be very useful in this situation. Seo knows he can't waste energy. That's why he planned to make a single deep hole in the center of the armor. As he prepared to strike, he didn't realize the queen had prepared something too. She decided to attack first, repelling our protagonist. He was thrown back, caught off guard by her move. She's definitely not going to make this battle easy. Even though there's time left, Seo wants to end this as quickly as possible and decides to leave the labyrinth. At first, it looks like he's running away, but what our guy actually did was use a trap to contain the queen. A huge explosion went off beneath her, causing extensive damage to the enemy. Using martial arts consumes an item's durability. Luckily for our protagonist, its final destructive power is truly impressive. This is the first time he's ever used this technique. It's only fitting to end the queen's life this way. With his spear, our guy hit the target like a comet, pressing against the queen's armor with immense force and violence. This attack is called Red Lotus. It's so powerful that it pierced through the queen as if she were a sheet of paper, finally completing the mission. There's no more danger before our guy. After using such a powerful technique, Seo was exhausted and out of breath. He noticed his hands were injured from the force he'd put into the spear. To this day, he has managed to save many lives, but before, he was just a weakling who had to flee from danger. Things started to change. Gaining several levels, our guy realized he would no longer need to run from danger. Now it's time to check the rewards he received. The Stinger Dagger is one of them. It can paralyze the target, depending on their strength. It's a useful item, but there are more important things right now, like the Royal Jelly. Consuming it will increase our protagonist's sensitivity to mana, but it has side effects. Every time a trap is triggered, he spends mana. To increase the number of traps, he needs more mana too. With no other option, our guy consumed the Royal Jelly. His entire body began to glow with that mysterious energy, feeling his core growing stronger and stronger. The mana absorbed from the Royal Jelly is concentrating in his body, but it's about to explode. Seo can't let that happen. He needs to accumulate this energy calmly so that his body can stabilize it. After a few moments, our guy finally got everything under control, increasing his body's constitution. He immediately felt all his senses become much sharper. Our guy is now at level 40, and his overall strength has improved significantly. He just didn't understand the system's warning about the jelly's side effects. Since nothing had happened so far, he decided to worry about it later, because it's time to incorporate that monster into his own labyrinth. All he has now are a few red goblins. Even though he's getting stronger, working alone has its limitations. Our guy needs to raise an army in that place. The system notified our guy about the Hive, which is a single entity, and suggested installing the Lake of Corruption. A new trap was also obtained. This lake, when a creature's body enters it, traits and experiences can be transferred to another monster. In other words, if he combines this effect with the Hive, all the larvae will become stronger immediately. Now our protagonist needs to select a new boss for the labyrinth. One of the small larvae seems to fit the role, being much larger than the others. Seo is eager to see it at work, promising to bring plenty of tasty enemies for what will become his personal wasp. In the city, some people are celebrating. Lee offered them a benefit, likely because she's worried about our guy's transfer. Even so, she hasn't arrived at the gathering yet, which leaves our protagonist a bit upset. There are only a few days left until he's sent to the countryside, and our guy spends all his time gathering food for a special friend. He also retook the level test, following the director's recommendation. The result was interesting. Seo doesn't seem to be resting during his vacation. To his friend, he's a very strange guy. And there's something else he can't get out of his head right now. It seems like everyone in the place can't stop staring at our protagonist. Seo thought it might be all in his head, but it's really happening. Maybe he got more handsome. Finally, their friend decided to join the gathering. Lee was very happy to see our protagonist. He's still upset about her being late and says she'll be cooking the barbecue now. But as soon as he said that, our guy became very worried, because his friend is having a nosebleed for no apparent reason. The barbecue meat is cooking, and our protagonist's friend seems to be feeling unwell. No one knows what's happening to her. To make matters worse, Lee is struggling with a simple task. She can't even open her eyes properly, which worries our protagonist. He suggests he could do it for her. Even so, the girl remains steadfast. She tried to look at our protagonist again, but all she can see is a person who is unbelievably attractive, almost otherworldly. Unaccustomed to this feeling, she slammed her head on the table. The force was enough to leave her disoriented. Another woman in the restaurant approached them, ready to help our protagonist. At least that's what it seemed like. What she really wants is to get our guy's number. SEO can't understand how this is happening in such a serious situation. These women seem to be operating on a different wavelength, until our protagonist finally started to put the pieces of this mysterious puzzle together. A few hours later outside, Lee seems to be back to normal. She had to drink some alcohol, but she seems fine now. Looking at our protagonist, she didn't feel anything special. She said she was just too tired and got a little disoriented. Their friends mentioned she works too much, when in reality, it was all our protagonist's fault, the side effect of the royal jelly. Queens control their subordinates through hormones, and the same is happening to our boy. It's not very comfortable, so he needs to be cautious. If he doesn't stay focused, situations like that could happen again. Lee believes her heart was racing because she's very tired, but something happened in that moment. It was as if she was in love with our protagonist. These words made our boy uncomfortable, suggesting his friend should see a doctor immediately. Lee said it was all a joke. At least our guy managed to have a normal day. After spending so much time focused on his training, it's good to be able to live life like an ordinary person. Now in the director's office, the report from our protagonist's second exam is being delivered. He reached a scale of 7.5 points. Just 3/10 behind S level, which places him in this new tier. If this information were shared with the media, the agency's reputation could soar. But for now, the director will need to keep this under wraps. The scientist in charge doesn't understand why, so he asked the director what's going on. This would be a huge burden for our boy. When the time is right, everyone will discover the great potential he possesses. At this very moment, Seo is already on the vessel that will take him to his new residence. His co-workers followed him there to finish up the reports that are still open. Although the ship is very large, it's strange because there are very few people on board. A child approached our guy, wanting to know if he is also going to Ulleungdo. That is our boy's destination. The child said he rarely sees new people on the ship. This made our protagonist curious, so he asked if the boy makes this trip often. He said he only does it on the anniversary of his parents' death, when he visits their grave with his grandmother. Obviously, this topic made our protagonist uncomfortable, but the boy said it all happened a long time ago. Even without knowing the stranger, he told him to be very cautious in that land, as it is a dangerous place. It wasn't long before the old woman found her grandson, who had gotten some drinks for them. From the tone of the conversation, Seo is wondering if that child is really a child, as he's very mature. And indeed, the region is dangerous. Many portals appear frequently, and there aren't enough awakened ones in the area. The place's safety index is one of the worst. That's not all. There's a reason why the residents haven't abandoned that land. It's the emotional attachment they still have. In the middle of the voyage, the sea became very stormy, rocking the vessel. Outside, the situation is getting even more critical. A large monster is trying to destroy the ship. SEO can't even believe he's seeing this with his own eyes. Then the system gave him a mission: defeat the Kraken before it fully awakens. There's no escaping this responsibility, because if he fails, his health will be permanently reduced, along with his mana recovery. He only has 3 attempts and cannot stray more than 10 kilometers from his destination. SEO isn't thinking of running away. In fact, he wants to face the problem head-on. The next day, another report was delivered. A mysterious person is receiving this information about the rescue department. There was no difference between the months, so he wants to keep things this way. He then ordered his team to get back to work, as he is going to continue playing cards, until a drunk man decided to enter the meeting room, claiming that the position of chief should belong to him, but a newcomer arriving in the city took that position, making them all uncomfortable. The man with long hair said everyone knows who he is, the rebel who messed with Overcross. An order that came from the director is what they're thinking. The people in that place collaborate with this guild from time to time. That's why the long-haired man wants to give a beautiful reception for the newcomer. It wouldn't be bad if he disappeared, as it could lead to a nice reward. In a closed-door meeting, the director acknowledges that the Ulleungdo region is very dangerous, starting with its division. The leader, that long-haired guy, maintains strict control over everyone. Being corrupt, he confiscates mana stones from the creatures they encounter, but they can't remove him from this position, as there's a shortage of capable people in that place. Our boy wants to know if he needs to worry about other things. The truth is, they already know about the corruption. Even so, this squad keeps the island functioning. That's why the director is confident in our boy's abilities. He hasn't publicized the length of his stay on the island, and will try to help him politically. To sum up this whole story, everything will depend on what our boy achieves in that place. The agency's building on the island is falling apart. One of the recruits came to introduce himself to our boy. He's the healer for the rescue team. Our boy wants to know where the others are, and he learned that some are patrolling while the others are in the meeting room. Inside the room, they are gambling and drinking peacefully, until they noticed our boy's presence. The healer was about to introduce him, but our boy did it himself, asking if they know who is standing there, since he's the one in charge of commanding this troop from now on. To those nobodies, Our protagonist is just a citizen serving a punishment, and he should drink with them to celebrate. Everyone is smiling carefreely, as if nothing matters. SEO immediately slapped the beer out of the guy's hand, showing he wasn't messing around. The goons didn't like this aggressive stance, and our boy told all the idiots to pay attention. They're going to start by cleaning this room until there's not a single stain left. One of the guys got heated, but another held him back, acknowledging that things could get complicated. But they have their own way of doing things in that region. It's important to respect that kind of conduct. Our boy didn't like this guy, so he suggested they resolve their differences through a session of violence, stating that if he were defeated, he wouldn't bother anyone again, but if he were the victor, everyone would have to obey him. Some of the goons started laughing even harder, imagining what would happen. The one who was challenged by our protagonist is ready to take him down with a single blow, but besides not having the strength for it, he lacks the speed. CO smashed the guy's face with a single punch, throwing his body away like a sheet of paper. The poor guy was lucky to still have all his teeth. CO said this is the last time he'll resort to physical force to solve problems, because he's sure no one will have the guts to challenge him from now on. That doesn't seem to be the case, as the goon already wants to get hit again. He tried to grab our boy, but all he got was a kick, which made him feel one of the worst pains in his entire life. If his arm isn't broken now, it must be fractured. Since he wouldn't stop screaming, CO kicked him again to get some quiet. The most defiant of those jerks is finally silent. CO wants to know if anyone else wants to disobey, because they'll settle it right now. With uncomfortable expressions, no one tried to challenge our boy. He then decided to call for the healer, so he could restore the health of the idiot who fell to the floor. Elsewhere in the same city, people are gambling and betting. Going up to the manager, one of those men has important news to share. But the long-haired manager doesn't want to be interrupted, which won't be possible, as the news is urgent. So the man whispered what he had to say, leaving the manager visibly distraught. SEO began to drill the members of the rescue team, telling them that during work they must think only of that, but his colleagues don't seem very interested. SEO gets furious and demands a response from them, and they all said yes in a single voice. Our boy will also speak with the superiors so that everyone can get a 15% salary increase due to the region's danger. This started to get everyone a little more motivated, but since the region is extremely dangerous, it's the least that should happen. For this to become a reality, the team must start collaborating with our boy. CO told everyone to get ready, as the next day is going to be very interesting. The person who found out about the raise was the long-haired manager, who is now introducing himself to our boy. SEO said he is an envoy from the capital to that region, but what the long-haired guy wants to know is if his men gave him a good reception. Answering him, CO said it was warm. The idiot with the broken nose, in particular, tried very hard. It remains to be seen what the long-haired man came there to do. He said he personally takes care of that sector and is free to visit whenever he wants. He just came to introduce himself in case help is needed. Just ask him. SEO refused any kind of collaboration with this man. He spends all day playing cards, completely unaware of what goes on inside the agency. This is a calamity zone, a new classification. It grants this division autonomous authority, meaning the ultimate power belongs to the protagonist. And at this very moment, he was telling the long-haired guy to get out of his office.